up? It is Jason Wojo. I am your host for the Lifeonaire show, where we help people create, live, experience abundant, prosperous lives in businesses. And I am joined on this episode in particular by my co-host, Polish Peter. Polish Peter, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad you could join us, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be wanted to be on this particular. This is Polish Peter. Yeah, I like how professional this intro is. Like, well, hello everyone.
That was my radio voice. I've been told yes. I have a face for radio, so I'm taking advantage of that.
Face for radio, yes, that yes. I agree with that. That is so true. And by the way, for those of you watching this particular episode, I want you to head over to YouTube and actually look at the episode, because what you'll notice. And there is 3 guys on there, and 2 of them have really good hair.
Yeah, right. Dude, Gabe's hair kind of put yours to shame, no offense.
I still got it, man.
Okay, that's all right. Well, hey, listen, speaking of which, our guest for this episode is Gabe Strom, and we're going to talk about something that a lot of people are interested in, and that is like kind of online businesses, getting out of the rat race, how to leave the corporate job. And like, you know, we're not talking about specifically how to leave the job, but we're talking about opportunities that are available to people online for businesses. Gabe's going to tell you about his business a little bit. And what he's tried in the past, and he's had a lot of crash and burn experiences, and I think there's a lot of lessons we can pull out of this for someone that's looking to make that transition yourself. So let's jump right into the interview right now. Here we go. Gabe Strom, Lifeonaire show. Hey Gabe, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us in the Lifeonaire show.
Yeah, man. Grateful to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Dude, I'll tell you. So you have a really specific kind of niche in business that I find fascinating, number one, but I think a lot of our listeners and our viewers are going to as well. And so you have managed to make an online digital marketing kind of career out of nothing, out of scratch. And so what fascinates me about this is that, like, you know, now in Lifeonaire, you know, I think we appeal to a lot of different businesses, a lot of different niches, yeah. But one thing in particular about yours is like yours. I mean, do you have an office? You do this out of your house. As we were talking about earlier, you may or may not even have pants on when you do this business, right? And so like
that is the question,
right? And for all of our viewers right now, I myself and Peter don't know if Gabe has pants on, and so,
I don't know how this has become a thing. This is how we start the interview.
This is it. But this is a business that allows you to do this.
For many years, though. I do have pants on today, but I've been working from home for many years. So kind of stumbled my way backwards into internet marketing and online business. And today we've got a team of 30 overseas in the Philippines that works for us, all virtual and remote. We've got 5 here in the States, including myself on our US team. And, you know, we run a digital publishing business. I didn't think I'd ever be in this space. I didn't start off to get in this business. I kind of found it almost on accident. We can talk about some of that stuff, but yeah, man, been involved. Joined my first home business in 2000. It was 5 or 6. I think it was 2005 was my first couple ones. And yeah, took the long path to entrepreneurship. Wouldn't recommend it for a lot of people, but that's just how it went.
But so was this experimentation for you, or was this looking around and seeing what other people were doing, or you were assessing your interests, or how did this develop?
Well, I mean, and I always wanted to, you know, at the core of all this came from a vision. I always wanted to be, I love kids. I've always loved kids. Sarah and I have 1 daughter now, you know, we're blessed by it. But even back then when I was 17, 18, I always thought I wanted to be a young dad and wanted to be able to be the kind of dad and father that could be around for their kids, you know, take them to school, pick them up in the afternoon, play with them, and not have to be gone all the time. Mm-hmm. And my dad wasn't that. My dad wasn't like a corporate dad. My dad's actually a Lutheran pastor. My mom's a school teacher. So I grew up seeing them go to work, and it wasn't like they weren't around by any means. I just saw too many people, you know, get caught in the rat race at a young age. And I knew I didn't want that. So that was kind of the beginning of it. I didn't know that I wanted to get into home business or online business. You know, I kind of went through the traditional route of failed in a bunch of different network marketing companies, got into digital publishing. I found direct response probably about, it was shortly after that, 2007 probably. Just, you know, saw direct response, information marketing, got exposed to that world, and then that's kind of grew into publishing. Today, our core business, ohhutter.com, is a Amazon FBA leads business. So we've graduated from publishing information. So now we publish data and product leads for Amazon sellers. That's our core business currently. And we got some other cool projects working on, but yeah, I just kind of found the space. I wanted to have freedom. You know, I wanted to have a life where I wasn't tied to a desk job. I think we all resonate. I think there's a lot of people in our country that want that, especially now with what's happening. Like, I feel like, I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, it feels like we've kind of come full circle where, back in the early days of the internet, maybe 15, 20 years ago, online was optional. Like, and now, retail's been crushed and online is the only thing we have left. So, for me, it feels like we've kind of come full circle. I think that leaves a lot of opportunities in this, on the planet for people to start, online businesses and run them from home. And it's a fun time.
So listen, I have a question for you, because you said at the beginning, like, my whole vision was to be the dad that get to come home and spend time with my kids and all that kind of stuff, right? And I think a lot of people who are going the entrepreneurial way, that is one of the reasons, especially if they have kids or family, right? And a lot of them don't end up doing that, right? Because they go into this entrepreneurial, end up spending 60, 80, 90, 100 hours.
Yeah.
What was that path like for you?
Man, that's a good question, Peter. That's the tension I see. I think our world glorifies the hustle. It's just we over glorify that. And I would agree that in the early days when you're starting anything, there's a hustle period. But you've got to be able to break through that. And, we're in a place now, strangely, it's so weird to say this. And you guys know how this is when you're so close to your craft, you don't even recognize like your own brilliance. Sometimes you hear from other people like, oh, you guys make up stuff online. We just take it for granted. But, your question about the hustle phase and so your question was like, how do you break through that?
No, did you actually experience that for yourself? Like, did you end up going 80, 100 hours, which you had a vision, you said some form of vision, right?
Yeah.
So did you actually follow that or?
Yeah, it wasn't like the typical, I started entrepreneurship at a young age. So I've been, it took us like 8 years to really figure out kind of some of the basics. So it's kind of I'm a slow learner sometimes with some of this stuff. So I don't feel like I ever really got caught up. My story wasn't the typical, get caught up in corporate America. In fact, I've truly I've had a couple of real jobs. Some of my friends from Lifeonaire make fun of me because the only real job I've had was in 2013. I worked at an ad agency downtown and did corporate advertising. But even that wasn't like, that was like 40, 50 hours a week. And I found time. That season was, looking back, is extremely valuable because it forced me to learn how to build the business in the cracks of the day, those little spaces. And so I'd always been full-time entrepreneur, and especially in home business, I always had this limiting belief. Well, of course I can do it, because I have all this time, but what about the person who's working a corporate job? So I think part of me kind of subconsciously went back to work for that reason too. But I learned in that time, there's always time. And you guys know this. If you want something, it doesn't matter how busy you are. Like, if you want something, prioritize it, put it first. That's kind of the core practice of, making a vision, is just putting that, forefront, and you'll find time to do stuff. So that was probably the time of my life when I was working, double shifts, like, early morning, getting some email and copy written before going to work, go to work. I was guilty of like, taking my lunch breaks and I would do work, and maybe some other time that, maybe shouldn't have been working on the business, but just like throughout the day, and then come home. I remember shooting videos at night. It's not an ideal time to be doing videos when it's dark outside. It's just like lighting's terrible, but it's like, hey, you got to do what you got to do, So that was the time. But yeah, I never really went through, I always knew I wanted to have an online business. I've kind of always been around this space. So it's a little different.
So was it the online business you wanted or the lifestyle you wanted?
It's the lifestyle, man.
Okay.
It's not the $1 million or the multi-million dollars. It's not the, I used to think I wanted $1 million business, and I think some of that's ego and recognition. But when you really boil it down, it's like, what does that buy you? That's the core of Lifeonaire message. I shared this story, Jason. I had made this vision early on, but it wasn't until I went to my first Lifeonaire event in 2014. I had a good friend invite me to an event. Steve Cook was doing it, and I went and sat there for 3 days. And it just made so much sense. The 4 stages of financial prosperity clicked. The having a vision just clicked. And it was things that I had kind of heard from other spaces, but I feel like Steve and what you guys have done with Lifeonaire really put it all in the same place. And so for me, that was like a big light bulb moment. And so we made, even back then, I was telling you guys offline, I had very little success online prior to that event, like little waves and flashes. I was doing coaching, but it wasn't until it was actually at that event I put on a vision it was a small vision back then. My original vision was just to make an extra $4,500 a month passively from the internet. That was my vision. That was like the work vision at the end of like my life and everything I wanted to do. I knew if I could do that. I went through all my expenses. My vision was very small back then. It's probably quadrupled or more since then. But it probably took, I don't know, man, like a couple years a year or two. Again, I'm not the fastest learner, so a lot of people can, get a vision and click and just run with it. For me, it wasn't quite like that. And now the dividends that I'm seeing, and this is for anybody that hasn't been to a Lifeonaire event, or I know you guys are doing webinars and things like that now, the dividends that I'm seeing now are coming in like 5s and 10 folds. And this is, how many, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later. And now that we've learned how to make a vision, I recently went back to an event. You guys know how this is. You can refine it. The vision changes. Mm-hmm. It grows. Like what you used to think is important, that's, maybe isn't anymore. So yeah, man. So that's been kind of, some of the path for it.
So would you say you're, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close are you living your vision right now? There's still some room for improvement? You're like,
I got tons of room for improvement.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'd probably give myself a 7 overall and everything. I think this is funny. I've had friends coach me on this. Some friends say, well, you're supposed to live your life like it's a 10 every day. And I'm like, dude, but I know like what I'm capable of. And between me and you guys and the fence posts, quite frankly, if I'm like, judging myself, I'd give myself a very low score because I think I'm just capable of so much more. And I feel like I use my gifts and talents to kind of get by with like a quasi vision. And this is just me being transparent. Like I know the tools, I know how it works, but it's just easy to be comfortable in the space. So yeah, I don't know. There's always room for improvement though. I think we can always get better. I will say, we're probably, 2014, I would have given myself probably a 4 when I was sitting in that Lifeonaire event. There were some areas in my life that were completely out of whack that I wasn't even aware of, specifically like my health. I'm a young guy. I've always been an athlete, but I kind of took it for granted. I was never really focused on health, eating well, breathing, stuff like that. Business, finances, all that stuff needed work. But yeah, man, there's always room for improvement.
So Peter, it looked like you were going to say something. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I think that's one of those things when you're an entrepreneur, right? We're about growth. So giving yourself a 7 doesn't mean that necessarily that you're not doing something right. It's just that last 3, it's that growth thing, right? You always want to improve. You want to always get better. And looking from that perspective, I think it changes a little bit.
Well, I don't think I'd ever give myself a 10 on anything in my life. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, because to me, if you give yourself a 10, it's like you've capped yourself off. Like, I always want that margin there, man.
Yeah.
So it's
and I wouldn't give you a 10 either.
Right.
I don't know if I give you 7.
Ouch, man.
So I know, right? Can you believe this guy, man? Like, so I gotta tell you. So Gabe, I gotta tell you this real quick story. It's real funny. We were at an event where we were rating parts of our lives, right? Because and similar to asking just how we asked you about your vision, and it asks you about your health and your body. And Peter and I were comparing his, and I saw a hit, and he gave himself an 8. And I'm like, you gave yourself an 8? And I look at Peter and I look at mine, and he's like, what did you give yourself? I'm like, a 6.
Oh man.
Well, you just have a different vision of for Alt.
Right,
I don't want to look like Hulk.
Right. So it's different for everybody. But man, so what do you I got to tell you, like, I hear so many excuses from people that are like, oh, like, the online market, the online thing doesn't work. It's just like it's just another scam. It's just another, like, it's the next level of like network marketing. Nobody makes money in that niche. Like, did you face those kind of belief systems when you started out this way, or were you just right from the start, you're like, nope, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. So, well, saying online's a scam is like saying the internet's a scam. So that was never really like a limiting belief.
But you hear that though. Some people say that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Especially in the direct sales space. I spent many years in there. Thankfully I haven't, I feel like I've graduated at some extent to different businesses. No, I think the biggest limiting belief I had, man, was why me? Like I would see these gurus and I'm like a maven. So I'm on, when I get into a topic, I like absorb myself. It's like Tony Robbins' learning style. So when I joined direct response, when I discovered direct response, and when I say direct response, this is just talking directly to a customer. So in the old day, it's like direct mail. They used to do direct mail to customers. Nowadays, you can make a video and put it on YouTube. It's direct response. So I think every business, in my opinion, is in the direct response business. We're in the customer acquiring building business. But I got on everybody's email list. Like I studied all, from Eben Pagan, Frank Kern copy. I'd studied Jeff Walker's stuff. I studied all kinds of stuff. Mike Dillard. I'm a big fan of a lot of Mike Dillard's content. But no, my belief is always like, why me? Like I've got a good buddy, Lewis Howes, who runs the Lewis Howes School of Greatness podcast. And I've seen all that, him and I got started in I don't know if he knows this story, but we got started in social media marketing about the same time, about 2007-ish. I think we connected at an event, and he's gone on and just done extraordinary things. I don't know if you guys have listened to Lewis Howes' podcast. He has, he's interviewing like Kobe Bryant and just, awesome people. And I'm like, dude, what's, the limiting belief has always been like, why me? Like if someone else is already doing this stuff out there, like why is there room for that? So that's been a belief that I've always had. I don't know, I think it goes on when you stay in the game long enough, what I've noticed is a lot of, you kind of find your place. So I didn't know when you say online business, we could take this a lot of different directions. Like there's a million ways to make money on the internet. There is an infinite number of ways and modalities to build a system online to direct money into your bank account, if that's your vision and goal. And I know a lot of people listening to this are probably interested in the lifestyle business. That's been hanging on our fridge now. Sarah and I have new visions we do each year, hang them on the fridge. A big part of that is a location independent business. So there's a lot of ways to do that. You've got specialized knowledge in your head if you're listening. The way that I'll share this story. Well, Jason, this will be valuable. One of our really kind of early big successes, not early successes, 5 years ago when I got into the Amazon space. So you don't have to be the expert. So I want to share this to somebody that's listening. A lot of people think, well, what do I know? Like I'm just, Joe from Nebraska or whatever, like who's going to listen to me or whatever. So you can be the publisher of info yourself. And my preferred model is to find an expert, someone that's an expert in a topic, and you're not, you act as the publisher. So you orchestrate and build the systems, which is kind of the path that I've taken. So behind the scenes, and you use another person, and you can partner with that person. You can do a joint venture with that person. You can do like licensing. There's different ways to slice the deal. The easiest way that I've done it is just to set up partnerships and joint ventures. And that's actually how I got into Amazon. In 2014, this is a true story. I was running a podcast just like you guys are doing and interviewing different awesome entrepreneurs. And I saw a post from a friend of mine that he had made a couple $100,000, I think like $220,000 in profit, selling stuff on Amazon, flipping clearance items from Walmart, basically going to Walmart, scanning stuff, selling it. This was 5 years ago. So the business model has changed quite a bit, but I thought that's interesting. My spidey senses picked up. I'm a trends guy. I'm a futurist. I'm like, Amazon's going to be big. I know e-commerce is going to be big. I was just kind of transitioning out of network marketing and coaching. I'd been doing coaching for like 8 years, kind of off and on. And so I'm like, hey, I want to be in this space. And so I approached him, and he had a big family. He didn't want to add any more time to his life. But he had this little kind of coaching group that he was running. It was like a $50 a month thing that he had built. And I was like, hey man, why don't I run this for you? I'll build the website. I'll build the funnel. Actually, I think he was charging like $29 back then. I'm like, let's raise the price to $50 and I'll build this model for you. You just be the expert. And so that's how I got started in Amazon. And I, interviewed him. I pulled out content from him. We made courses, and we did that for several years. That led me to my current business partners. We're doing the same thing now in the lead generation space. So I kind of learned, so again, you got to find your space, but I wanted to share that story that you don't, in the expert space and the knowledge-based business, there's a lot of ways to slice it, and coaching, consulting, info products, services. But you don't have to be the person. There's different, kind of different models with that.
So what I'm hearing is if you're not really a subject matter expert, or if you don't want to reinvent the wheel, find somebody else who's already done it. But also I'm curious, man, like with so many diverse options to make money, so many different ways to do this, how does a brand new person who has a 9-to-5 like actually get into this space? Are they looking at what other people are doing and seeing what resonates with them? Or are they like, how does somebody start to kind of get a feel for what avenue they potentially may want to investigate? Or is that just like you're just going to try a bunch of different stuff? Like
that's a loaded question. Yeah, it's a loaded question.
That's a hard one, man.
What I would say if I was starting over again today, because you don't know what you don't know. If you're brand new and you're in corporate America and you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I'd love to have an online business. I don't even know where to start. If that's the conversation you're having, I would say to start with wherever you are. So, what that means is pick a business model. So if you want to get into e-commerce, go buy a course, get some training, start an Amazon business. If you want to get into network marketing or direct sales, find a company that resonates with you. If you want to get into coaching and consulting, get into a program that can teach you how to do that. There's a million of those, probably too many of those out there. I'd say to start, I think one of the keys, I've got a book on my shelf back here. This is probably one of the, let's see, this is Sarah's. I share this on all the podcasts I do. It's a book called Strength Finders. by the Gallup Group. Tom Rath wrote this book. There's a little assessment. You can take this online, and it'll tell you your top 5 strengths. And I would strongly encourage you to start with something like that and get clear on what you're good at. And I mean, I did this a lot in the early days, man. I struggled for years. You guys, we could talk about this offline. This is the pants down part of the interview, but I didn't, I spent years in that space, like way too long, like, 8 to 10 years, just struggling, trying different businesses, trying to figure stuff out. And I think part of the reason I hadn't clicked is I didn't know what I was good at yet. And there's a Venn diagram of what your strengths are, what the world needs, and like what problems you can solve in that space. So anyways, man, I don't know. You got to start where you're at. There's no easy solution to that. I couldn't predict it in just like this whole pandemic thing. I don't think any of us could have predicted this months ago. I couldn't tell you I'd be in the Amazon Leads business, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. We'd done a couple different versions of this. So I think you got to stay flexible, and you got to look. I'm a big fan of the Wayne Gretzky quote, look where the puck's going. I think if you're looking in the digital space, there's a lot of different business models online. I'm a big fan of subscription businesses, any kind of recurring revenue. So whether that's like a membership site, for example, our lead list is a monthly subscription service. So we're big fans of that. Software, if you're a tech, if your strength's in tech, go find a problem in software and solve it. So at the core, and you guys know this, I'll say this, this will help save someone a ton of time. At the core, all entrepreneurship and all business is find a problem and solve it. Okay. So first thing I would do if I start look around your industry, your space, what you're interested in, and say, what are the problems? That's the very first thing I'd do. What are the problems here? What are people struggling with? And then I would ask the question, like, how can I solve that? Like, what gifts do I have? What kind of system can I build? How can I build a system to help solve this problem for someone? That's all a business. And, I'm a big Peter Drucker fan. All marketing or businesses is marketing and innovation. So the marketing or the innovation is like, what's the problem? How can I innovate that? And then the marketing is the direct sales piece of how do I sell someone that solution? So I'm like a minimalist. We could talk. I mean, I could talk on podcasts for days about, we take a very different approach when we launch products. We take this like backwards pre-sell approach where we'll pre-sell products before they exist. But anyways, man, hopefully that helps somebody. Like start with the problems in your space, look around, make a list of things that you're interested in, and I'd start there.
One of the things that I want to point out too, I think that's important based on what we're talking about here, because I've been in this online space for a long time too, so I kind of relate to what you're saying. And when I struggled way back in the day, 2 things that were missing for me is 1, I didn't really have a vision, like clear vision. And 2, there's all these, what I call them squirrels, the shiny object syndrome, the squirrels and all that kind of stuff. I think especially in the online business, squirrels are, oh my God, it's like 20 million of them running around. So how you tackle that?
Man, that's a good question, Peter. I can tell you, this is a question for those of us that have been in the online space. When you were talking, Peter, the vision, I think, is the most important piece. I think having that vision, this is core to what you guys talk about. That'll help you with that. There's always shiny objects. I'm guilty of it, man. It's like cryptocurrency, trading, like stock, there's sales right now, oil's on sale, there's all this stuff going on. And it's like, I saw Steve post in the Lifeonaire app. He's like, someone was asking like, how do you capitalize on, oil futures being down or at negative? And he's like, well, is it in your vision to, buy oil futures? It's like, maybe that's the wrong question that you should be asking. So I think the vision, Peter, is key. I would say the second piece that really helps you stay focused that I wrote down when you were talking is the team. So this was a big, at least for me personally, like we didn't really experience massive growth until I got with the right team, and you got to run with the right crew. So I've learned about this myself as an entrepreneur. I'm a pretty average entrepreneur working alone, but I'm an exceptional entrepreneur when I'm working with a team. Because I've learned my gifts is visionary and futuristic. I can call out and pull ideas, but I need a good like number 2 person, number 3 person that can help me execute and build on those things. And so we found that we've got a great team. I've got a general manager in Washington, my partners in Washington, our customer service ladies in Virginia, our tech guys in Oregon, and that's our whole U.S. team. Like tech, customer service, marketing, we do it all with that. But I think that's key, man. There's always going to be shiny objects. I don't know. You guys tell me, how do you when stuff like this goes on? I mean, we're like, as entrepreneurs, we're opportunists.
Right.
I think Steve would say the vision. I think that's the corporate answer.
I concur on that. I mean, that's what I have when I have coaching conversation with my students, whoever it might be, like, what does your vision say? I think that is so important to have that because there are so many of those shiny objects. If you have clear path where you want to go, what is it that you want to get, right? And why you want it, now it becomes a lot more impactful for you to actually go and get it.
Yeah, I will say this, Peter, and you brought up a good point. I think where the traction from my life, what I've experienced happens once you get the vision. It's easy to get the vision. That's almost the easy part. Anybody can you could have a fantasy. We could talk about that difference between fantasy and vision. I think where the rubber hits the road, like I'm reminded when you're talking that to build a fire, it takes focus, right? If you're going to build a fire, you don't go light a bunch of little fires all over the field and hope the field catches on fire. Like you concentrate the effort, you focus the lens in one area that builds the fire. So I feel like, I feel like you gotta focus on one thing. And I've done this in the past in my office, like when we're building a new, subscription service or program or whatever, I'll put that on the office and keep a little ticker, like on the corner of the whiteboard, like how many active customers do we have today? Like that's it, I would find ways to obsess about some of those core metrics, the income producing activities that move the bottom line. For me, it's like what you focus on grows. So I've got to have that in front of me sometimes and say like, what is the goal? What's the agenda? What are we working towards this week? And so I would actually take a part of our vision and put it up on a whiteboard, like my vision, my values, and just a simple why. We talked about this offline too. This is like the boring part that's really true and accurate. And just seeing that stuff up there on a daily, like not having your vision in a place where it speaks to you each day, where it's constantly kind of in the background. So not just like write it, put it in a drawer, but hang it on your fridge, put it on the office wall, get a pocket vision. This is like Lifeonaire expert level. It's synthesized. I still haven't been able to do this. Put it down into like a little pocket vision, put it in your pocket. But that stuff really works, man. It works because what you focus on grows.
But you have to wear pants in order to do that.
You got to wear pants to do that.
Peter's just obsessed with the pants, man. I don't know what it is, but that's those Polish guys.
I told these guys before the show that I want to do an interview show called Pants Down, and now we're running with it. Just authentic, drop the guard, right? Now we're running with it. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have.
Fatal mistake, man. Don't ever mention it to us. Yeah.
Oh, hey, can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll let you keep going. The true story, man. The first time I got on a Zoom, this is a true story. I've told the story before. I don't mind sharing it. But the first Zoom call I ever did, I was on a coaching call, and gosh, I shouldn't even gone on this path. Long story short, I didn't know that Zoom turns the video on right when you pop on the Zoom, and so I had just gotten out of the shower, and in my mind, I was like, oh, I forgot I got this call I got to jump on. Let me just go sign on. You guys ever done this on GoToWebinar? Let me just go sign on real quick. And then I'll go, finish what I'm doing. They're going to take 10 minutes for intros anyways, and I'll jump back on. And dude, I was standing about like this. Like it was kind of like that shot. And, I flip it on, the screen goes on, and I turn my computer screen as fast as like the millisecond it hit my mind, and I froze. And I'm like, and I was, totally naked, just out of the shower. This was on a mastermind group of people that I hadn't met before either, by the way. This is brand new people. This wasn't like friends.
Hi,
anyways,
nice to meet you.
True, funny, true story on Zoom. Now, every time I jump on Zoom, I think of that story.
That's called being vulnerable, huh?
That's the real deal, man.
You get the real deal. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, you're seeing truth here on the.
Here I am. Anyways.
Man, I don't know how you recover from that. But anyway, what I'm thinking of is like, to your point of staying focused, it's a matter of having this vision in front of you along, I think, with the potentially even some sort of dashboard, like what you were talking about, like a dashboard of like the key metrics in your business that you want to kind of focus on and pursue, whether it's number of customers, number of transactions, it's, whatever, number of webinar registrations or whatever. And so I think that's a big part of it. And so like, I'm also hearing like, you really chose the online space from the perspective of a location independence, so you can do this from wherever you want. As long as you have a computer and an internet connection, you can make this happen. I do want to pause for a second though, because you threw out a lot of terms, and I know you've been in this, and Peter, you've been in this industry both for a long time, but you threw out a lot of terms that people may not even have any clue what you mentioned. You talk about FBA, lead generation list. You talk about direct marketing. You talk about network marketing. Can you just pause here for a second and give a 1-sentence description for each of these so we can translate what you just mentioned?
How do I do that? Yeah. Well, FBA is fulfillment by Amazon. So that is Amazon's third-party fulfillment program. So a lot of people don't know this about Amazon, but when you buy a product on Amazon, if you look next to that product, it'll either say Amazon or it'll say fulfilled by, and it'll say like the company name. Those fulfilled bys are third-party sellers like me and millions of other third-party sellers, probably a couple million now. And that's the majority of Amazon is actually third-party seller. It's like, I forget the stats. I'm pretty sure it's over half. You can pay $40 a month to be a third-party reseller and basically, buy the right to use Amazon's fulfillment system. That means that what we do is we ship a pallet of goods into Amazon. And we get discounted shipping for that. And then when you, as the customer, go on Amazon and buy that, our products are already sitting at Amazon's warehouse. Amazon's little robots go and grab it. A human packs it, puts it in a box. It goes on a bunch of conveyor belts, and boom, it gets sent out. And that's how 2-day shipping happens, is with this fulfillment system that Bezos has built. So that's FBA. You can also sell on Amazon an FB merchant fulfilled, where you do that packing and prepping. You pay less of a fee for that. It's another topic. You mentioned direct sales or
direct marketing,
direct response.
Direct response.
Yeah, direct response is just well, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. So that's just marketing to people directly. So directly to customers. So whether via email marketing, via throwing up a Facebook Live, doing a YouTube video, doing direct mail. I know a lot of people in real estate still do direct mail, any kind of direct to customer advertising or marketing. So
you actually expect some kind of a response from them. It's not like branding where you're just putting stuff out there for just so they know.
Yep.
Yeah. If we talk about anything, that's probably what we should talk about. Maybe in the conclusion. I mean, Peter, I don't know in my opinion, direct response is everything. Like that's what makes every business go around. Whether you're a dentist, you're selling postcards, if you're trying to buy real estate, like that marketing, that's that Peter Drucker, marketing and innovation as entrepreneurs. Like if you can't do that marketing piece, like I think you're really going to struggle. But yeah, that's a whole other topic. Like, how do you slice that for a small business?
Well, I'm curious. So would you mind unpacking a little bit of your business for our listeners, and so that people can get ideas of what you've done and see where you've applied these principles for yourself?
Yeah. So our direct response is very simple. We're I won't get into the numbers of it, but so we have an email list. You can go to our website, ohcheddar.com. You can opt in, join our email. So we use email to launch most of our products. We have a waiting list for our specific products. So someone can go to our website and join a waiting list for one of our lists. We use video quite heavily. So we have a YouTube channel. I'm a big fan of YouTube marketing. In fact, here's our operations guy calling me now. Big fan of YouTube. I've used YouTube over the past couple of years, Jason, to sell several $1 million worth of products and services in different spaces, all with video, different channels and things. I'm a big fan of video on YouTube. Also on Facebook. So we run a Facebook group for our customers. So if you look us up on Facebook, OH Cheddar, you'll find the Facebook group. And so that's also part of our funnel. So that's how we kind of capture an email list and build a community simultaneously. I do a lot of Facebook Lives inside that group. I'm a big fan of that also. It's kind of a way to talk directly to your customers in a private setting. So like a lot of these terms I throw around, I can tell you, it's like a deer in the headlights. You guys, if you're not in Amazon, like all these terms, just like real estate, if you're not in real estate, you guys can throw around all these terms. People don't know what it is, but those are the core channels. If I'm being totally pants down, that's how we've grown and attracted customers. And I will say, I'm a little old school. So this has been a big part. A lot of people don't know this about me. A lot of my friends don't even know what we fully do. I keep to myself a lot of times recently. Like I really have kind of turned the corner into this like stealth wealth mode. But customer service, man, we treat customer service like marketing. And so I've got a gal that works for us, not quite full time, but in the US here, and calling customers, handling emails, that's like her gig. And so I'm a big fan of treating your people well. And just if someone's got a problem, just helping them. And that word of mouth, it's not the fastest way to grow, but word of mouth is direct response, the oldest form of marketing there is. If you're listening to this and you can get 10 or 100, ideally 1,000's the magic number, raving fans, even if it's just one person that experiences your business, loves what you do, goes on Yelp, leaves a review, and goes and tells 2 friends at their next party, like you will be successful if you can duplicate that. That's one of the principles I make fun a lot of network. I think a lot of people kind of, put network marketing in its own box sometimes, but there's a lot of valuable skills I learned from those, 8-10 years in that industry. And one of them is the 3 get 3 get 3 principle. Like, that's a network marketing principle, but man, that works in business too. If you got a real estate business and you're buying houses, and the person you buy a house from, they go tell their cousin and whoever, like, that's leads. That's real-time leads. So anyways, that's I kind of wrap that all into direct response. That's what we do with direct response. I think each business is a little different. I think the future of direct response, if you want to look for that, is text marketing. This has been going on for years. I think doing text right, obviously people's attention on their phones is growing. And that's, in my opinion, this is kind of like the modern day newspaper, depending on how you use Facebook and email marketing and even text marketing. And there's only, a lot of people don't do text good. That's why we haven't personally done it yet ourselves. I don't know if there's good systems out there for it. I've kind of, I get people that do it bad, but I've got, again, my buddy Lewis. So here's shout out to Lewis, just doing a good job. Me telling you guys word of mouth. He's got, I get this text message. Lewis, I don't know if you can see this. Lewis Howes got a picture with him and his puppy. It's the silliest thing. And so I say, it's like his other marketing email or phone number. So I saved it Lewis's puppy. So every day Lewis's puppy sends me like a text, and it's these daily reminders that, like, just positive affirmations and things that, I appreciate as an entrepreneur. So I think there's ways to do it good, but yeah, that's how we do it. Email and video really is core. If I had to like pick 2 pistons to my motor, I'd say those are probably the 2 main ones.
So I just want to like kind of summarize where we are to this point really quickly for people. So let's imagine right now that you're a listener and you're not sure what you want to do. You realize you want to quit the 9-to-5. And so what Gabe has just done for you is kind of shown you, number one, a recommendation of going where you're strong, taking your strengths, not only your personalities, but also your interests. And if you have some expertise, like when I got started online, I was doing bodybuilding related stuff because that was what I was good at. And that's what I enjoyed, and then you take that. And then what you're basically saying is that people, and by the way, there's a lot of options here, but you are now in a situation where you can relatively simply start building an online presence through, in your case, you loved video and email. And then from there, you use that to generate the leads for your business, for your service, your product that you're trying to sell. And it doesn't have to be a huge team like you have to start off. Like they could start off with themselves and a partner or something like that. Do you have anything you would share with somebody? Let's say that now that they've identified where they want to go with this, like how do you determine when it's time to kind of start growing, when it's time to start expanding, get building a team? Like, what does this look like? Do you build a team and then hope the profits come in, or do you get the profits first and then hire the team? What do you recommend?
Yeah, great question, man. I'm glad we'll kind of put a bow tie on this stuff because it's easy to chase these rabbit trails. But when I'm going through startups, I'm a big fan of a principle called MVP. So minimal viable product. So I think the trap that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into is they have an idea like, oh, it'd be cool if you had this. And they're trying to like invent something. You haven't really tested, is this going to work in the marketplace? That's why I'm a big fan of direct response, because for pennies on the dollar, what it used to cost back in the day, you can test an idea. So I'll give you a specific tactic. And this is, this is a multi-million-dollar idea if you take this and run with it. We've used this to launch many, many programs over the years. And more importantly, we've used this strategy to not launch a bunch of stuff that we were going to. And so if we've got an idea or if you're listening, you got an idea for a product or service, what I would do starting off from scratch is I would go pre-sell that idea. So you can do this on Kickstarter. You can get a video for your idea if it's like a physical product. Even better, I would, like, if you had like nothing starting from scratch, I would like sign up for Zoom or some kind of webinar platform. I would drive some traffic. So either with a joint venture of someone who I know had my audience and or buying some Facebook or YouTube ads, get 20, 50, 100 people to subscribe to a webinar. And I would host a webinar. And this is what we've done. This is going to sound, some of you guys already know this strategy. And I would host it and I would pre-sell the idea. I would host a webinar. I would offer, 30 minutes, 45 minutes of really intensive value to solve their problem. I would actually demonstrate how I can solve them problem. And even better yet, I would, solve it on the webinar and say, hey, I built this thing for you. And then I would say at the end of it, the classic, a lot of people don't know how to sell online. So a really easy way, I learned this from Frank Kern back in the day, is when you get to the pitch part, the offer part. A lot of people don't know how to make an offer. It's really simple. It's 3 things. It's tell them what you've got, tell them what it'll do for you, and tell them what to do next. Okay, so here's what I got. You got this problem. I got this thing, right? I can coach with you over the next 6 weeks and help you solve this problem. Okay, here's what it'll do for you is it's going to solve this, this, and this problem. If you're sitting around wasting time because you're doing this and you need buyer leads or whatever, I'm going to just do that for you. And then here's what to do next is, click below and buy the program, or click below and sign up for a free 20-minute strategy call. And let's see if it's a good fit for you. That's another really easy, it's like a layup way to do sales online. I would do one of those two models and I would pre-sell your idea and say, hey, I'm doing a beta version of this. You guys are founding members, so I'm going to do it probably at a discount of some sort, do it so it's a no-brainer offer for people and see if they buy it. And you will learn more by going through that process. Let's say you go through that process and let's say you get a handful of people. The first time I did this, it blew my mind. This was we did this exact strategy back several years ago. Still works today. And we pre-sold a weekend virtual summit. Okay, this was in 2007, before now everyone's doing a virtual summit because of COVID, but we're like, hey, let's host this. It was called what was it called? I forget what it's called, social media something. And we did a training on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And we're like, I wonder if someone will buy it. So we hosted a webinar. We called up a bunch of friends. We did this old school, we didn't even know how to do internet marketing. So we were literally calling people saying, hey, we're doing this free webinar. Do you want to come to it? Which is not a good use of time, but it worked. We got I don't know what it was, 40, 50 people to sign up for this call. And I think I forget how many initial sales we had. It was 15 or 20 or something like that, right in that range. It wasn't a ton. It was a $300 product. And people were like, well, I wonder if people would pay money to learn how to use Facebook. This is back when Facebook was just coming out and, a lot of people just didn't know how to use it. And we're like, it's free. They could go figure out, I wonder if they'll pay money. And so you just do this pre-sale model. So I'm a big fan of this pre-sale model. If you can kind of tweak it and apply it to how it works for your business, but go test your ideas. This is why this is so valuable this is where the rubber hits the road. Go put it in the marketplace. Either they're going to buy it and you're going to learn, or two, but sometimes better yet is they don't. And then you can follow up with people and say, hey, I noticed you didn't sign up. Why didn't you sign up? You can do this with Zoom. You could email people. You could just message them. You could send out a survey. And people, it's crazy. They'll tell you, hey, right. I liked what you offered, but I'm really looking for this. And I say this is what's valuable, guys. And you guys know this, as entrepreneurs, a lot of people are afraid to fail. And I want to make sure this message gets loud and clear. Don't be afraid to fail, embrace failure, because in the failure is where you're going to learn. And I can't tell you guys how many ideas, some of our best ideas have come from misses on other ideas. But then if we just tweak the idea a little bit and go right next door, we've got this home run thing. So that's kind of for example, our lead business now. We've got 7 top shelf lead lists now. We're getting ready to release 8. We should have 9 and 10 come out before Christmas. We've got this kind of growing business. I found this business on accident. We had launched a coaching program a couple years ago, and we were coaching with sellers. And again, listening to the problems, we kept hearing from all of our clients, hey, we're gated in all these categories. We can't sell these products. And so as we got together with our coaches, we're like, well, how do we solve this problem? And we're like, well, they need more product opportunities. If they're only fishing in this much of a well, we got to give them exposure to more products so they can grow their business. So we started our first lead list as hey, let's just give these to our coaching students. And then as that grew and we got traction with it, we're like, hey, there's a model here. We could really help people with this problem. And so that's kind of how we got in this space. But it wasn't like I set out, in my corporate job, I'm going to go build this kind of business. It's grown and evolved. And you guys know this, you got to stay flexible and you got to be able to follow the problems, follow the money. And it's a process, man. So I would say, at the end of the day, have a vision. And you guys, this is core to the Lifeonaire message. And give yourself patience and time to let it develop. I think that's the biggest. Everybody's listening. And I get it, man. I'm the same way too. I want to listen to a podcast like this and be like, hey, tell me the hack. Tell me how to go make $100,000 next weekend. Sure, I'll bite. I'll bite on the side shiny object. And some of those opportunities do exist. And once you get good at your craft, you can do that, in marketing. It happens every day and more. But you got to give yourself patience to stay in the game, to learn and master your craft. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs, right. Like you said, Peter, we get shiny object and we're frustrated. We're 2 years in and we're frustrated because it didn't work. It took me, like I said, probably 10 years to make my first $1 million on the internet. And that wasn't in 1 year. That was over a couple years, of selling something, but that wasn't, gosh, if you're listening, nobody has done it quick. Like everyone's got their own process and path.
Right.
I just don't think a lot of experts are open to like talking about the struggle because they want to put up this facade that like I'm so amazing. But that's been my experience. It's been and I don't know, maybe you guys have different experiences. I think, some people are faster learners, but that's just been the reality for me.
Yeah, I totally agree, because one thing that people don't see, especially like on the internet, is the 10 years that it took that guy to get to that $1 million day.
Yeah.
The guy talks about the $1 million day, but he doesn't talk about the 10 years of struggles and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
That can get there. So give yourself a patience, right? Stay focused, the vision, and eventually going to craft your craft, and then all of a sudden something switches, and make things happen.
Yeah. Well, dude, hey man, I want to thank you for being on the show, and that we could talk all day for several days about this topic. And I think people would love every single moment, because you have just so much value and knowledge and experience to share with people. Speaking of which, how do people learn more about what you're doing and find you?
Yeah, man, I'm probably best. I've got a new YouTube channel, so you can just go to gabestrom.com/YouTube. That'll take you there. You can also just look it up on YouTube. I've been doing some coffee talks, and I got some new interviews planned for some entrepreneurs coming up for this year. So that's probably the project I'm most excited about. If you're an Amazon seller, I would look us up on Facebook, OA Cheddar. We've got this cheesy little leads business. So join the Facebook group. We don't take ourselves too seriously in that Facebook group. We have a lot of fun. But that'd be the best way. I'm pretty flexible on social media, at Gabe Strom, kind of across the board, Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, man, I appreciate the chance to come on here and share it with you guys.
Thanks, man. Catch you soon.
There's a lot of wealth of information from the particular podcast.
Oh yeah, a ton.
Listeners, you have to look at it from your perspective. One of the things that he mentioned on this episode that is really important is the strengths finder, and that is one of the things that I would go first and look at, like, what are my strengths, right? Because there's a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different options, right? We talked about the shiny object, the squirrels, and all the kind of stuff. So the strength finder, did I say that right? Strength finder is going to help.
We'll provide translations later. Don't worry about it.
Yes, they're on the back table.
Transcripts. No, you're right. But so in all seriousness, Gabe, super high energy guy, obviously, right? And you're probably going to have to actually, most people, Peter, about 20% of people, I just read these stats yesterday, speed up. Actually, 19% of people speed up the audio speed on a podcast. And I think this might be the first episode where people actually slow it down, because there is so much value here that Gabe shared. And I know that there was a lot of topics covered in this episode, and each one of these topics in themselves could become episodes, but I think we really covered it to a great extent, the big nuggets that you got to consider as you're going down this path for yourself. So the first one is to, like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? What kind of, not only what is your expertise and your experience, but like, how are you wired? Like, so that you can start to design your business to make it fulfilling and enjoyable. Like, listen, you don't want to go from a 9-to-5 working for somebody else into a job that's even worse, that has no time restrictions because you're working for yourself and you don't enjoy it. And so you got to really figure out all these things together, and that's going to give you the best thing. The other thing is really having a vision for what you want this job, this career, this entrepreneurial venture to provide for you. Gabe talks about being a dad, wanting to be home, and so you got to kind of design it that way too. I love, and actually, and listen, it can be a little confusing if you're starting off in knowing which of these things you should choose. And I could see a lot of people getting paralyzed by that, man. Like, that Gabe mentioned so many different, he mentioned like lead lists that he's doing for Amazon. He mentioned, and basically the lead lists he's talking about are product lead lists, where he is providing lists of deals for products to his clients. So he's having people scrape the internet for deals. Like, so for instance, Target.com has something for 85% off, and he'll get that information and forward it to his list. And this is a potential product for someone to resell on Amazon. But, whether it's that, whether it's direct response, whether it's, network marketing, I think people can get confused, and that's why you have to go back to the first thing we said. What are you good at? What do you enjoy? And also, like, start to see other people in that niche. What is your advice for that, man? Like, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with that, because of knowing what your strengths are is really important. But I think the first thing that you need to look at is that vision. I know we talk about the vision, but I think without the vision, you're going to struggle big time. And I know for myself in my own walk, as you know, back in early 2000, I've been in the online space for a very long time. When I first started, I was all over the place. And one of the reasons, what I do know now, is one of the reasons why I struggle was all over the place is because I didn't have the vision, didn't have the clarity of what I truly wanted to do. And once I finally got that vision and figured out what my strengths are, I found a sweet spot. And now I'm actually working in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we have those stories of people that have created businesses before they've been exposed to Lifeonaire. And then when they create the vision, they discover like, hey, gosh, like I either have to remodel or modify my business significantly to give me the life that I want, or I need to just find a different niche or a different business or a model. And so that's why, you want to get the vision done first. And actually, we just saw Gabe recently at our Get a Life Getaway. That was the second time he mentioned that he had attended the first one in 2014, where he got the first version of this, and then years later came back to decide to get the second one to refine, to modify, and to tweak. So it's a process.
Right. Yeah, it is. And the cool thing about the vision is this, because I have these kinds of conversations. People come to me and ask me like, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? Should I go with this business? Should I go with that business? Right. And one of the things that I ask, like, well, does this business idea align with your vision? Right. Does it going to get you closer to the vision or further away? And that by itself starts to eliminate a lot of those shiny objects, those squirrels and all that kind of stuff. And that's why we talk about that kind of stuff, how important it is.
Yep. Well, hey man, we're out of time. We're going to wrap it up. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. Also, we'd love to have you to be part of the Lifeonaire community. Go on ahead and join the app. Lots of great discussions going on over there. I'm over there. Peter's over there. The founder of Lifeonaire is over there. Steve Cook. And so you can become part of the community over there. And we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning into the Lifeonaire Show, where we help you create a life and business you love. Catch you next time, everyone.